Now that was a song by the local rock band A Subtle Plague. In today's Indie Special here on KTOR San Francisco, we'll have a feature on this six-piece band. They consist of three East Coast guys, Jonathan, Earl, and Pat, and three German brothers, Patrick, Christopher, and Benji, who grew up in Africa. Now before talking to you, let me just brief our audience on a few facts about the band. You started off on the East Coast and settled here about 3 years ago. You've just released your first record on Heyday, and you had it produced by a friend, Slovenly's lead guitarist, Tom Watson.
People ask me what they are, and I say that they play basically rock and roll, multicultural, but something that almost anyone can understand. This isn't an American band. This is a band that comes from all over the world, and it comes through in the music. It's a music that could have been done 20 years ago or could be done 20 years from now, and the people from around the world should be able to understand it that way. I knew when I was going to Bard, I wanted to start a band. I wanted to be in a band. And actually one of the first persons I met was Chris.
We met the first day of school in our rooms and just decided, yeah, let's start a band. I mean, the band, it was meant, I was playing pots and cans, I didn't have any instrument, and Pat just sung without anything. I had no mic, no nothing. That's how it started.
They want and the sound that they are is a very live sound. They need visual cues, they need just the physical aspect, and there are mistakes and there are little nuances that create a feeling that it's being played right then in your head. And in order to do that, we have to record it in a certain way. And what we did is put all in one room using many microphones in different parts of the room to get the reflections of sound that is more live. And, you know, there's a lot of leaking, you know, sound goes all over the place, cymbals are everywhere. And it probably was the biggest test as a producer. I'm not an experienced producer. I'm experienced in knowing what I like. A producer can become another musician member for a band, and I would say that I translate what I think they want onto tape. I'm in between the band and the tape machine.
Hey! up in Queens, New York, and the first awareness of politics was when my father gave me a book when I was about 12 called The History of the IWW, which was the International Workers of the World. And I never read the book. I was only 12 years old. It was more just sort of like child's curiosity with it. Like, what is International Workers of the World? I knew what international meant. I knew what a worker meant. I knew what the world was. And those three words really struck me. We were living together, and most bands do, is because it's an economic thing. You can't really, at this level, you take any independent band and almost all of them, live in the same house. Because usually you can practice there, and if someone falls behind the rent, someone else can pay it.
Living collectively is a very traditional way, and if you look in history, it's how people live for thousands of years. Like you take our situation, we're a band, and like you take Anna, she's a poet, and you take Karina, she's an artist. By living collectively, it eliminates, to a certain extent, the worries always, like, whoa, bills. It affects your art, it affects what you do, what you take for real in life. I just go to work, I don't see the money, but I eat. In a way, I couldn't even live. I couldn't take the responsibility to a certain extent. And I don't really want to have that responsibility because it scares me. On a human level, it has a lot of thrill to it. You learn a lot from living with each other, because by living with a lot of people, you learn about thinking of other people naturally. You're forced to do that. Even if you disagree with it, you have to think of the person next door and next room. You have to think of being responsible.
I was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey in 1963. I don't have a lot of memories about growing up there. I got hit by a car there, but there were 6 kids in our family living. My dad was in Marines, and my mother was very religious. She was really involved in, church, and I used to go to Sunday school a lot, and she used to give money to the church, money that we, the kids, could have used. She was giving towards the church or whatever, and basically we were on welfare in that time. Didn't have any money at all. What you say? We'll hold trade. Until the day. Eventually, my parents got divorced, and we were alone with my mom for a little while. It was hard for my mom to keep us under control. She couldn't really take it. It was really hard for her. And then eventually she took my 3 sisters to foster parents in Philadelphia. And I went with my dad, and my mom left and went to California. And it's not her fault, I don't blame her or my dad. The only way I feel sorry is just that we're separated. We're so far away. We're not as close as we usually were.
If I were to classify my relationship with my father, it would have been a very typical upper middle class relationship between father and son. A lot of expectations, like for school, for my father was to go to school to learn a profession, whereas I just wanted to learn things. Even now, he's very concerned about my education and how my education will lead to a profession. My parents, they're very liberal in a lot of ways. There's a lot of play between, what I can do and, what they say is acceptable, and they give me support. But I don't feel that I'm a part of that, a part of the way that they want to live.
When I read a book by a doctor, heard an expert on TV, for less than the wage of an hour.
Es kommt darauf an, was man als Education heutzutage nennt. Meine Beschulung, also was ich in der Schule so gelernt habe, da habe ich jetzt richtig was angefangen zu lernen, glaube ich, in der Universität in New York. Davor war ich nie richtig da in der Schule, aber ging so über meinen Kopf, das war alles viel zu kompliziert. Schreiben und Lesen habe ich so mit 9 Jahren gelernt. Von meinen Eltern hat uns halt das Schreiben beigebracht. Ich habe viel natürlich gelernt, einfach von meinem Reisen und so, da habe ich halt das meiste gelernt. And I was involved, this is okay if I speak English, politically a lot in my life, but without choice. I just happened to be at certain eras at the right time where I saw a lot of political turmoil happen in front of my own eyes. So when I came to university, I wanted to take all what I had seen and be able now to see where I stand, politically speaking. So when I studied, what I did mostly was political economy, philosophy.
Even these odds can cancel the debts of colonial rights.
When you ask me, is this a commune? It is different than a lot of communes that exist.
It's communal, but although it is communal, everybody has their own free space. And one example is that we don't have any set rules like a lot of people here in America, you know, the commune thing. They have so many laws what they have to do. They have to give so and so much money at the end of the month. They have to wash the dishes every Wednesday at 5. Even if at Wednesday at 5 some girl will call them up to go out, the rest of the collective society will start brooding because they went out at 5 and didn't wash the dishes, which to me makes no sense because human beings, they have enough rules, you know, of having to go to piss when you need to piss. You know, it's a rule. You have to piss. There's no way out. And to set rules in between that, it makes life very complicated, and we don't do that. We do what we know we need to do. There might be only one person who really likes to wash the dishes, or two, and they will wash the dishes once in a while, you know, when it gets chaos. They will realize we've reached the border where the house needs to be cleaned, they'll clean the house. The other person who we know it's not their character to wash dishes, they've never washed a dish in their life before, and when they have, it just makes them so unhappy that it's not worthwhile. And they have other qualities. They have the quality of going out and getting us gigs, and they have the quality of talking to people, and they'll do that.
Everyone in the band is good for something outside from the music. You know, it's like in our mafia. We're almost like the mafia. We are family, and I think the minute someone comes in the house, it's family. You know, and it doesn't always have to be blood family. By blood, it can be anyone who lives in an environment with other people. Like when you come to the house in Africa, first time you visit, first day, night, you're the guest. Second day, you go out with the shovel or the thing, you go out in the fields, and you bring in to the community that you live in.
Also ich bin aufgewachsen in Deutschland, in Italien, in Frankreich, in Thailand, in Mali, in Senegal, und
when people said to us, well, where do you come from, you know, I always felt I come from our parents. Our parents were home, you know, that was our home. Well, I feel I count 3 fathers and 1 mother. You can call them hippies. They were a special kind of hippies. When they discovered the 60s, leaving Germany, you know, when I was 4 or 5, and they came to Berkeley, California, they were a bit different than a lot of the hippies because they had a more broader spectrum of what was happening around the world. And the whole philosophy of the 60s, which was what my parents were more about, they weren't so much about running around taking LSD and picking flowers. Not to say that that didn't happen at times, maybe or not, maybe not, but they were more attracted to the philosophy of expansion, you know, breaking away from the traditions that have held society so strongly.
When we lived in Africa, my parents, they were so intrigued how balanced their children were, you know, that they sort of reflected that education on us children.
Yeah, I think that it was very attractive to us kids. Like, we never rebelled against our parents' philosophy, which is an interesting thing because a lot of the friends I had in school, they were going against the philosophy of their parents, while we wanted to create the same sort of philosophy. There was little rules that we had to like follow. All the rules that existed in the household were just normal rules that make sense to even a kid, you know. It's like, be somewhat responsible, you know.
When we went back to Europe, we realized that the children that we were together with, they couldn't respect their parents because they didn't respect them. But, you know, there's a simple fact in life that if your parents give out a lot of love, it doesn't even matter too much what lifestyle you lead, what tradition you lead. Your children, they're gonna grow up respecting you, you know. haben wir immer Französisch, Englisch und Deutsch hauptsächlich gesprochen. Aber zwischendrin, wie wir in Thailand waren, haben wir eben ein bisschen Thailändisch gelernt, nicht? Und dann, wie wir in Tansania gelebt haben, haben wir Swahili-Unterricht gehabt auf der amerikanischen Schule. Und oft war es so verrückt, dass wir eben 5 Sprachen im Haus gesprochen haben. Benjamin, Christopher und ich, manchmal mischen wir in einem Satz 3 Sprachen. Das ist jetzt, als wenn ich sehr autoritär oder wenn ich irgendwas haben will, dann spreche ich auf Deutsch, nicht? Und dann, wenn ich irgendwie was ganz happy sagen will, von irgendein schönes Gefühl, das wir gehabt haben in Afrika oder so, dann spreche ich gleich in Französisch, nicht? Dann, wenn es ein lustiges Streiten ist, dann tue ich irgendwie sogar was Afrikanisches rein. Komm her. Und das erste Mal ist immer Deutsch.
I've played in a lot of different bands, and I know how hard that is, working with different individuals. Because everyone grows up in a different environment doesn't mean that you can't try to get a same idea, you know? And that's basically what we do. We all have our own ways of living, our own ways of going about things, our own ways of choosing certain ideas, but we all have one main idea that merges into one, and that's the music and the band.
Like a lot of other things, rock has become a very rigid, commodified system, and we've gotten as far as we've gotten without putting an album out, and it's primarily based on our live shows, the fact that we went from the East Coast of America to the West Coast of America. So our primary goal at this point is to get the album out to those 3 major outlets, you know, retail, critics, and DJs.
I mean, the band, you know, we're very crude in that way. I mean, we make no amends about the fact that we want to reach as broad an audience as possible, and that if you're going to play that game, you've got to play it as manipulative as the next guy.
We're all different. We're very, very different in a way. Me and my brothers obviously are very closely, we're very the same in our lifestyles. But as an individual, we're all very different in the band. But, you know, it's funny because that's what makes the music. Confrontation, arguments, all that kind of stuff. Knowing deep down that you have a connection, you first have to deal with people humanly before you deal with them as a musician. Then the music is the second thing. Music starts with human values, you know.
Homeless riot in your town!
There are no limits in style in music, in what style you play. What's important is the heart that comes out of it, be it hardcore, be it classical. And that's something Debussy said, which I find is very true, and he said that music is the space between the notes.
My relationship to my brothers, it's almost as close as my relationship to myself. I'm much more concerned about the strength of all the members in the band, and that includes my brothers. I'm much more concerned about their strengths than their weaknesses, because I believe very much that before you come into this life, you choose your brothers and sisters to learn for yourself certain things you need to learn. Exactly what you lack, your other brother has, and that's his biggest strength, is your biggest weakness.
Nostalgia, crashes, hope and action. And the wine of youth awakened sober. Recalling the past with bitter folly.
The main influence that I got from Africa is the way you play music within a group. In Africa, it's more like everyone plays together, and it doesn't matter what level you're really at. Like they say in Africa, you're not a musician if you can play with someone on the same level. That's the easy way out. If you play with someone that's on the same level or close to the same level, it's very easy to play good drums. They say a real musician, like a master drummer, who can sit down and play with a kid 6 years old that doesn't know a rhythm and say, I can create music through this kid. Like, I let him play and I will add my knowledge and create music with someone that is not on the same level. That's, if you let that be, that's the fastest way to progress.
I tend to be a very paranoid person. Settling is my biggest paranoia. I'm afraid to settle, whether it be in a relationship or living somewhere. From travel, place to place, the minute you finally get used to one place. Tanzania, I just got used to. I spoke Swahili better than I spoke German for a while. I understood the mentality. I got used to the beach, the life. Boom, we're in Mali, Sahara Desert, different culture. French, didn't speak a fucking word. Excuse me, I didn't speak a word of French. So I say, okay, it doesn't matter how you grew up. There's a negative side, and the positive side. Yeah, I have the physical experience. I can go anywhere I want and pretend. It's very easy to pretend. Parisien, je suis parisien. Oh là 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 là. It's my cats is only italiano. But the negative sense is I can't sit at one place and really stand with both feet and feel secure. Because deep down, it's not me. So what I end up doing is I act. For me, life is a one big movie, and you're the actor.
I like writing poetry a lot. I've done that from sort of a young age. For me, it was obviously band offers the greatest opportunity for that. Well, writing is something that takes too long to see results. And music offered the opportunity to combine a lot of things in terms of acting, writing, and saying what you want to say, and getting immediate response from it. Well, on an outward sense, you could see a subtle plague as this society and the pursuing of this materialistic dream of, America. It's completely wrong. And it takes its toll in the wasting of human effort, and human talent, and human abilities. And it just mangles and destroys them. And it causes all these conflicts within people. Not so much the blatant things of homelessness and crime and stuff like that, but just mentally and psychologically in the way that people are really able to express their real talents. I think what I try to stress lyrically is how this society affects, me personally, and I channel that into my lyrics.
So hard that I forgot you were gone.
There's a conflict that, is within me, that excessive rationality and an excessive tendency towards romanticism as well. Almost a romantic longing for love within me personally. And fused together, that I think dominates a lot of what the lyrics are about. It's funny because if you look really at every song, if you read the lyrics, pretty much deals with love and relationships, however alienated. But it deals with it in a connotation that, like I said, a lot of other people would connotate as political. Like Ambition Longs, a lot of people have said, oh, that's a very political song, but for me it's more a sort of almost a brutal sort of love song. I always envision like slowly crawl, if you move at all, release your fear, let emotion steer, as about making love.
We have fights and arguments, that comes naturally, but we don't let those emotions override, our responsibility. We're all friends, and I don't hate anybody's personality. I get along with everybody, so any bad feelings that we have are ephemeral, they go away. I don't tend to see things in terms of a close framework. I don't think any of us do. We have a certain direction, but an ideology is a framework, and we don't see ourselves within a framework. We go out of the bounds. And my framework, the way I see things, overlaps with that, but it doesn't encompass it. I'm not a square within a square, but I can be a square that overlaps another square.
It wasn't a hate thing or, anything like that. It was just everyone else accepts the way, certain things might get messy, or piles of dishes, piles of garbage, food all over the place. As a group, they all accept that way of living. For me, it's different. I was always independent, basically supporting myself without having the whole group support, putting money all together and buying food, paying bills or insurance for a car. Everything is pretty much done together. So we discussed it, and basically I followed my feelings and said, well, I'm gonna leave, I got a call from John DeHaze from Agipop, and I started touring with those guys. I met a band in Texas, and they told me they needed a drummer. I just thought maybe it would be an experience to go to Minneapolis. I basically stayed there for about 8 months, and I got a call at 4 in the morning, and it was Benji. And he was telling me, maybe you ought to think about coming back. We all have been through a lot. We've learned a lot, whatever. And I thought, no way, do this again, move, run back, I don't know, And he's, we basically talked again, and I pretty much thought about it. And I talked to Christopher and Pat, and they said, well, they'll come down and talk to me about it. So they drove all the way to Minnesota to talk to me about this, which I found quite remarkable. They got there, and we discussed a lot of things, musically, and we knew each other. We've known each other for a long time. But the thing was, they only had 2 days to stay. So I had to, make a decision. And I used those 2 days until 3 in the morning. So I packed all my things at 3 in the morning and left.
Escape from the prison last night. One to the east,
I don't let anybody put us down without some constructive criticism. If it's constructive, I love it. If it's destructive, I have no time for it, and I feel protected. I'm proud of what we've done so far. I don't regret any moment of it, and I love it.
You find a lot of people that look at our lifestyle and say, these guys are crazy, they're completely wacko. I could not live with 9 people in one house where 4 people work and the rest don't have to work and stuff. But I find a lot of times the ones who say that, profiting of the lifestyle that we're leading, putting it down on one side, but taking full profit, and that just shows you the subtle play within them. But I think the subtle play is not out there to point fingers. Our songs are about ourselves living in a society. We're equally part of the subtle play. I have the subtle play within me too. It's just, I gotta go to the movie, I gotta watch TV, I gotta do this. I don't think we're excluding ourselves, but we're expressing ourselves.
We also follow the guidelines of we're not separated from this society. And the forces that move this society have an effect on us, and there's no way we can separate ourselves. And to separate oneself would be creating a myth, and in a sense, accepting the fact that you've become a victim by saying you're separate from it all and putting yourself above it all. In effect, you admit only to the crude reality that society has gotten to you.
Mainstream allows you to really have your music reach out to the entire world, and you need that. I don't think that one should creatively become less and have to say wrong things just because you're trying to sell albums. I would want to get into the mainstream music industry in order to really allow my message to come out, and I think our message is as clear in the words as it is in the music, and it's, I think that you transfer that on an instrument. I think instruments speak. If you listen to Carlos Santana or something like that, this guitar speaks. I think even Eddie Van Halen speaks with his guitar. I don't know what he's saying, but it's nevertheless speaking.
Dream or a vision? I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be 35 and doing this.
I think everyone in the band once in a while goes up to his sort of like doubts. Am I complete lunatic doing this, putting everything of my life into this band?
It could very well be that way, and that's the way it always is, in terms of rock. I always remember Pete Townsend seeing him in an interview in 1965 and always saying the band might end next week. Never take anything for granted.
Forget
I've toured 5 times the whole United States working with the band. And the band can give you all the pleasure of playing and, you know, touring and doing whatever, but the band can't give you love and pleasure. The band can't give you a hug at night. They can, but I'm talking, you know what I mean? This is a more male-female kind of a intimate relationship. The band's not gonna joust me tonight, you know what I'm saying?
Ice cream heroes on color TVs, fighters and leaders, braver than me. God of commercials, God of the free. Not loading my gun when he came to me. Then I left in the stranger's car, the only saloon with a movie star. We drove through his palace, imported from Rome. He dealt me a high hand and left me alone. Ice cream heroes on color TVs, commodify the authorities.
I've come to the point now where I have my dreams about the future of the band, but I know that it always comes in different forms anyway.
It's hard to live off music. I think that music should be kept in perspective of your own personal goals. I think that success is only measured by your own happiness.
Remember to write or believe what you read. I'm from the static of entertainment waves. They live in the memory of television graves. Out from the static